and he's the 12th richest man in the whole world. The 12th richest man in the whole world. The best that we can do.
You know, that's the good fortune of working
hang on, Dr. West. Let me ask you. Hold on, Mayor.
And putting thousands of people to work.
Dr. West, what's wrong with being wealthy? What's wrong with him being a billionaire?
I'd like to be wealthy.
No, the problem. I'll tell you what the problem of being wealthy is. Because somewhere I read that it's easier for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to get through the eye of a needle. Namely, if you're wealthy, you end up being friends with people like Trump. When he says, Trump has changed New York more than anybody. Trump tells Bloomberg, you're the greatest mayor in the history of New York. They hang together. They're from the same group. It's just a neoliberal side
you know they're not
and a neo-fascist side. But
you know they're not friends.
They have been friends for a long time.
That they are not friends, and they are they're very different people.
They're not friends
and you know the work that Mayor Bloomberg.
More now on the state of the race. The war of words between Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg really heating up tonight. The former New York City mayor releasing an ad attacking the senator's supporters, the so-called Bernie Bros, for their behavior online.
It is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
Let's discuss now with former Mayor of Philadelphia, Michael Nutter, the national political chair for the Bloomberg campaign, and Professor Cornel West, a supporter of Senator Bernie Sanders. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. Let's talk. Dr. West, I'm going to start with you. Some of his supporters, the Bernie Bros, they are notorious in online circles for ganging up on people who support other candidates. Are they fair game for criticism, you think?
Oh, absolutely. And we all have to adhere to certain levels of integrity here, no doubt about it. But it's clear that there's a nobody but Brother Bernie Sanders movement at work in the Democratic Party. So when we bring critique to bear on stop and frisk, and we talk about the terrorizing and the traumatizing of these young, precious black and brown brothers and sisters, 6 million of them, and that's fair game in terms of the critique of Brother Bloomberg. He can't say that he's concerned about treating each citizen equally and terrorize and traumatize this precious slice of the body politic.
Mayor, I want you to weigh in, and I want to play this. There's a new ad that's being released after Sanders spoke out against Bloomberg over the weekend and criticized his support for stop and frisk. The professor just mentioned it. Here's what he said. Watch this.
Regardless of how much money a multi-billionaire candidate is willing to spend on his election, we will not create the energy and excitement we need to defeat Donald Trump if that candidate pursued, advocated for, and enacted racist policies like stop and frisk, which cause communities of color in his city to live in fear.
Okay, a lot to unpack. So is Bloomberg's attack on Bernie Bros, is that an attempt to distract from his own issues?
Well, first of all, Don, it is not an attack. That ad is a combination of screenshots of things that people have said on social media, headlines from a variety of other news media organizations. I think one is the New York Times and a number of others. So you can't attack somebody if you're merely repeating what they have said. Those are all factual. The issue is that, even as Dr. West said, there are some folks who are very, very aggressive online. And in contrast, literally, to the other part of the ad where Senator Sanders says that, everybody, even with a difference of opinion, should be able to have a civil discourse. There are apparently some people who cannot adhere to that. And to the doctor's good point, and I mean, we are friends, Mayor Bloomberg has talked about stop and frisk. It existed before he came to New York City. It continues to exist today. We can get back to that. But if you're going to talk about that, then let's talk about all the lives that were saved during the mayor's tenure black and brown lives. When the year before he came into office, there were over 700 homicides in New York City, the vast majority black and brown men. And when he left, there was a 48% reduction. New York was about 300 and is now the safest big city in America. He created the Young Men's Initiative, focused on black and brown men to help them get jobs and job training. Created hundreds of thousands of jobs in New York City, raised high school graduation rates, and a variety of other things.
See where you're going.
No one of us ever wants to be judged on our worst moment or worst action. There is something called grace.
He did a lot to help
African
African-Americans as well. I understand
his actions.
But I want Cornel West, before we run out of time, guys, remember, we only have a certain amount of time, so let the other person in. But go ahead, Dr. West, what did you want to say?
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's got to be democratic accountability. We're talking not only about this kind of ugly terrorizing of young people. We're talking about Brother Bloomberg's very cozy relation to Wall Street, the ways in which public education has been privatized. Sister Diane Ravitch talks about this, connected to Joe Klein, and the ways in which we pushed out so many quality teachers. This is a whole neoliberal way of engaging the world, and we're fighting a neo-fascist gangster. There's no doubt about that. Brother Nutter and I agree with that. But I'm just afraid that if we reach the conclusion that our only response is going to be a neoliberal who has gangster policies toward these young black people for 6,605% increase every year, though, Brother Nutter, I think Bernie Sanders is the only one who's got the vision, the enthusiasm, and the excitement to bring America together to push the neo-fascist gangster out of the White House. So it's going to be a clash. And it's fascinating to see these two Jewish brothers going at it. One of them tied to a neoliberal orientation, the other
it's going to end up with the two of them. At the end of the day, it's going to be the two of them in a contest here. And the mayor is not running for mayor of New York. He's running for president of the United States of America. That's a very different job.
But to talk about running the country means you got to deal with the vast majority of people who are poor and working class.
I understand.
It can't be tied to the 1%.
Sure.
And he's the 12th richest man in the whole world. The 12th richest man in the whole world. The best that we can do.
You know, that's the good fortune of working
hang on, Dr. West. Let me ask you. Hold on, Mayor.
And putting thousands of people to work.
Dr. West, what's wrong with being wealthy? What's wrong with being wealthy?
I'd like to be wealthy.
No, the problem, I'll tell you what the problem of being wealthy is. Because somewhere I read that it's easier for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to get through the eye of a needle. Namely, if you're wealthy, you end up being friends with people like Trump. When he says, Trump has changed New York more than anybody. Trump tells Bloomberg, you're the greatest mayor in the history of New York. They hang together. They're from the same group. It's just a neoliberal side
you know they're not
and a neo-fascist side. But
you know they're not friends.
Dr. West,
you know that they are not friends, and they are they're very different people.
They're not friends
and you know the work that Mayor Bloomberg, you know the work that Mayor Bloomberg has done from a philanthropic standpoint, which is very different than anything that Donald Trump has done. Mayor Bloomberg has made a mark in a very positive way on this country and around the world. That's what he's done with his wealth.
Yeah, I want to get this in.
You and I agree.
Let me get this in because we have a very spirited. Hold on, please, both of you.
Charity with justice.
There's been a very spirited debate as we are having here tonight. But I think both of you would probably agree with what the Speaker of the House told our Christiane Amanpour earlier today. Watch this.
I can't even envision a situation where he would be reelected. But we don't take anything for granted. As I say, that we have to have our own vision for the future, but everybody knows that we must be unified in making sure that he does not have a second term.
So she's talking about unity there, and also, there has been discussion about not beating up on people so much, even though this is in the primary, so that they are so damaged going into a general that they can use the words of their own Democratic colleague against them. So quickly, please, if you can both respond. I'll let you do it first, Mayor, and then Dr. West after that.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big concern. At the end of the day, there will be a Democratic nominee. And as Democrats, we have to be united singularly, totally, in removing Donald Trump from the White House. And so some of these personal attacks are really not helpful, and they become ads in the fall. And unfortunately, we saw some of that in 2016. Let's not repeat that and destroy each other.
Dr. West, please.
No, Brother Nutter and I can go at each other and still steal away and go back to Mount Carmel Baptist Church and other contexts, but we can have still deep disagreements. But the problem is this. Yeah. The Democratic establishment has not been fair to Brother Bernie Sanders in 2016, and there's evidence that they may not be fair in 2020. So the question is, you can't have unity without the justice, unity without the fairness. If we have a fair process, no problem. If we don't have a fair process, there's going to be a problem.
Okay. Thank you both.
Dr. West, elections are won on the ground locally. You know that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll continue this conversation. I'm grateful to have both of you gentlemen on. Thank you so much.